Hello, welcome to Watchtower, the channel where we explore the New World's translation of the Holy Scriptures, which is a publication made by Jehovah's Witnesses. Let's begin. On May 3rd, 2024, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses has released a new update, and the update is called Update Number 3, in which they briefly discuss an exciting update that they have regarding the use of the name Jehovah. Let's take a quick listen.
Exciting is being released on video on demand. It's a video about a Bible manuscript that people thought had been destroyed. The manuscript is an English translation of the Christian Greek scriptures, where Jehovah's name occurs over 200 times. Let's watch a preview of the video entitled, A Lost Bible Translation Rediscovered.
Translation in the 18th century was the center of political and theological dispute.
This was a time when you could not state what you think too openly.
Truth-seeking of the kind that he followed was not something that was welcomed by the authorities.
If you believe that the Bible is a collection of sacred writings, you're not going to be very happy if there are some very obvious errors in the translation.
Taking it for granted, that was not what we were here to do. We were here to ask questions.
This was a translation undertaken by real scholars who knew their Hebrew and Greek.
We had always assumed that this translation had been lost at that point.
It's absolutely fascinating, and it needs bringing to a wider audience.
We're sure you'll enjoy watching the full-length video about this fascinating discovery.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do not be misled. What Watchtower has been trying to do for decades now is trying to convince you that God's name is Jehovah. But why do they go through such extremes when they've already admitted that no one really knows what the true God's name is? Check out what Watchtower has to say about God's name.
God's name is represented by 4 letters. Hebrew is read from right to left. In English, those 4 letters are rendered by the consonants Y, H, W, H. The original vowel sounds used in God's name are unknown, but the 4 letters representing God's name appeared throughout ancient Bible manuscripts and have been inscribed in many other locations.
Notice he said the 4 letters represents God's name. He did not say that Jehovah was God's name. Now, let's listen to what this governing body helper had to say.
Now, a primary reason given in the Revised Standard Version and many other Bibles for substituting Lord is because Jehovah is not the original pronunciation, or that it should be Yahweh. But the fact is, we don't pronounce Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob the same way that the ancient Jews did. Taking this even a step further, if they were so concerned that Jehovah is not the exact pronunciation of God's name, what about the name Jesus? Acts 4:12 says, there's no other name that has been given by which we must get saved. So is its pronunciation equally important? In fact, scholars don't even agree on whether Jesus and his disciples spoke Hebrew or Aramaic, which would affect the pronunciation. Hebrew would be something like Yeshua, Aramaic, Yeshu, something like that. But what about the poor Greek-speaking disciples who didn't have the SH sound? They said Jesus, but that was the form recorded in the inspired scriptures. The most corrupted pronunciation is Jesus in English. It's nothing like they would have said it in the first century, but that doesn't prevent its use some 900 times or even more in all of these Bibles.
This argument that this governing body helper is using as to why the name Jehovah is being used just really blows me at this point. Mainly because he's almost like a child where he's just saying, well, Jesus, that's not his real name. So why can't we use the name Jehovah? Because that's not his name. That is not the name the prophets of old used. That's not even the name that Christ used. So why in the world would we just adopt a name? Does that even make any sense? Whenever it's convenient for Watchtower and it supports their agenda, from time to time they will reference previous Bible translators. In this case, check out this insert produced by Watchtower regarding William Tindel.
William Tindel was the first person to seek to translate the Bible from the original languages into English.
Tindel was born in the late 15th century. He was born in the area of Gloucestershire, but had a chance to go to Oxford and became a priest.
In the 15th century, there was a lot of resistance to the idea that the Word of God could just simply be accessible by the general people.
People knew the Latin Bible from church, which was interpreted by the priest for them. They never had direct access to the Bible themselves.
Tindale was not allowed to do this translation in England. He went to the Bishop of London asking for his permission to translate the New Testament from the Greek, the original text, into English, but was not given that permission.
Such was the opposition to Bible translation that Tindale later wrote there was no place to do it in all England. And so with the help of merchants sympathetic to his cause, Tindale fled to Germany, where he could more easily work on his English translation of the New Testament. By 1525, his translation was complete and ready to be printed.
I want you to stop just for a moment and think about this.
But remember that many Bibles previously used by our brothers were translated by individuals who knew that God's name was in the Bible and they refused to put it in the text. Now imagine these same individuals believe that God and Jesus are the same person, or that the dead live on in heaven and hell. How do you think it affects their translation of difficult doctrinal passages?
Did you catch the lie? Let me play it again.
But remember that many Bibles previously used by our brothers were translated by individuals who knew that God's name was in the Bible and they refused to put it in the text.
See the con job here? Now, I've already shown you the video in which Watchtower admits that YHWH does not mean Jehovah. It does not even translate that, okay? They've already said that. However, what this governing body helper is trying to do is he's trying to pit two different types of English translations against each other. Those that use the name Jehovah in their English translations and those that do not use the name Jehovah in the English translation. They're saying, look, the ones that don't use it, they use God and Lord as titles because they don't know the actual correct pronunciation of God's name, which is correct. No one knows. They said that. But then they want to hold fast and hold steady to those English translations that do use the name Jehovah, aka, for example, King James Version. Even though it's in a few places, they still want to hold on to that because they're trying to make you believe that this indeed is God's name, because they built their whole religion on this name, Jehovah. So it has to be God's name, right? Every successful company knows that you have to, if you are pushing any type of product or service, you have to distinguish yourself from your competitor. So in this case, what Watchtower Bible and Tract Society is trying to do is say, you know what? Our Bible translation is better than the other Bible translations because we actually use the name Jehovah. You see, you can't use the ones that don't have God's name in it because that's not really from God, okay? Because it uses titles such as Lord and God. But then you can't use the other translations either because then they push the narrative of the Trinity and hellfire. So you got to listen to our publications. You got to read our Bibles. Why? Because we have the quote-unquote the truth. What's important to understand here is that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society doesn't have the quote-unquote truth any more than any other religion. What they have is a niche market. Why and how do they have a niche market? Well, they have a niche market because they know that every human being on this planet knows that everything here has a name or title. It's just what we know. So the idea that the creator of all things in existence doesn't have an actual name, it just blows a lot of people's mind. A lot of people can't wrap their minds around that. So when you have a company, which again is the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, approaching you saying, well, we know what God's name is, and then they're able to show you from the King James Version or some other Bible translation that has used that name Jehovah, and you've never heard that name before, then bingo, now you're sold. Now they've sold their product. Now they've sold their marketing strategy to you. And now once they got you to believe that, now they can hook you in to believe anything else, because the goal here is to convince you that they are the true representation of God on this planet. They are God's people. They have been assigned by God. They have been appointed by God. They are God's faithful and discreet slave. And God is using the governing body to lead and spearhead all this information that is being channeled from God through them to you. It's a genius marketing plan, and it works. It's worked for decades. Now, I know the concept of the Almighty, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, not having a name. A lot of people are just not going to buy that, and I get it, right? This is a whole process when you're waking up, as they say. But let me show you something. In Matthew chapter 6, verse 9 and 10, let me just read something. It says, "You must pray then this way. Our Father in the heavens, let your name be sanctified. Let your kingdom come. Let your will take place as in heaven, also upon earth." Why does God's name need to be sanctified? Because it's been defiled with all these other fake names and titles. That's why. So for those of you who just have a hard time understanding the concept of this, just, be patient and understand that soon all of this will come to an end where we all will know what God's name is, and we all will be able to praise and worship him alone, and not any other false gods. Thanks so much for joining in today, and if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. I do have some older videos you may want to check out, and I look forward to posting some new ones, so be on the lookout. Have a great day.